scattered my breath, and I realized they didn't see me as humor anymore. You and that thing in your belly were never meant to stay in this house.
Stop pretending. If you pass out, I finally get to live my real life.
Everything faded, but I prayed my baby could hold on just a little longer.
Step away from her, because I only asked this once. Who touched my sister?
You and that thing in your belly are just trash that gets in the way. Snap, the mistress screamed, then viciously kicked my sister's 7-month pregnant belly. My sister screamed in pain, collapsed on the cold floor, clutching her stomach, tears streaming down her face as she looked up at her husband for help. But the despicable husband, the one who was supposed to protect his wife and children, was standing there, his arms around the mistress's waist and sneering, "Stop acting. If you faint, I will be free to enjoy my true love." My sister fainted in despair, her breathing gradually weakening. He thought that was the end. He thought he was the king of this house. But he was wrong. He did not know that the smart watch on my sister's hand had sent an emergency SOS signal 3 minutes ago. Crash! The glass ceiling shattered like a crystal rain. Black figures swung down like lightning. Aim, the Special Forces team leader, kicked open the main door, stepped over the rubble with a rifle in my hand. My murderous gaze swept over the trembling husband. Who just touched my sister? I guess 99% of you will hear this, sigh, and scroll past, not clicking like or subscribe. Even if it only takes a second. What time is it in your country, and where are you listening to this story? Amelia tried to take a deep breath, leaning back in the cold leather chair in the prenatal waiting area. Chicago Women's Center was a high-end private clinic, but the luxury couldn't keep the loneliness at bay. She was 7 months pregnant, and her husband Eric had broken his promise. For the 3rd time this month, he'd used an important meeting as an excuse to miss an ultrasound appointment. She opened her iPhone, scrolling through the latest text from Eric. "Late, big meeting, be strong." The message was short and unemotional. Did he know that being strong while 7 months pregnant, alone, in this quiet hallway, was a luxury? She flipped through the ultrasound photos, talking to the little thing growing inside her, creating comfort in the silence. Suddenly, a scent hit her. Jasmine perfume, sharp and arrogant, the kind she'd smelled on Eric's shirts. She looked up. The girl walked in, not from the magazine photo, but standing tall in front of her. It was Selena Vance. She wore an expensive fur coat and stiletto heels, looking at Amelia with a mixture of contempt and triumph. Selena wasted no time in greetings. "Still here, Amelia? You think keeping that belly will keep Eric?" Her voice was small, but full of venom, enough to reach Amelia's ears and shatter any remaining shred of hope. Amelia felt her throat tighten, a hot tear rolling down. "Please go. This is not the place for you to do this." "Not the place," Selena sneered. She stepped closer, bent down, her voice full of menace. "I came here to end it all. Eric doesn't need a burden, and that baby was never born." It all happened so fast. Selena suddenly kicked Amelia in the stomach, not with strength, but with cruelty. Amelia felt a piercing pain, fierce and cold, as if every nerve in her body was broken. She screamed, but the sound was only a choked sob. She fell to the cold marble floor, clutching her stomach. At that moment, everything blurred. She saw Selena's sharp high heels retreating. She felt a deep despair, not only because of the kick, but because of the cruel truth that this betrayal had reached a level she could not imagine. She tried to reach out to touch the nurse call button, but her body was no longer listening. As she fell, a nearby security camera seemed to flash once. Then on the security room's screen, a red line appeared. System log, camera 4 offline, 10:47 a.m. Immediately, the hospital loudspeaker blared, cold and urgent. "Code blue in the maternity corridor. Repeat, code blue." Amelia sank into the darkness, carrying the pain and the emergency loudspeaker with her. Amelia woke up in a brightly lit hospital room, a feeling of intense pain spreading throughout her body. The contractions were under control, but she knew she had gone through something terrible. Beside her, there was not the cry of her child, but the cold beep beep of the heart monitor. The doctor explained briefly. Fortunately, the baby was safe, but she had to lie down and be closely monitored. The door opened and Eric walked in. She expected a hug, a word of comfort, or at least a worried question. But Eric only carried a blue folder. His face did not show worry, but a look of annoyance and calculation. He held a latest version of iPhone. The light of the screen reflected in his eyes, making it impossible for her to read his true emotions. Eric sat down, his voice steady and frighteningly convincing. "You fell by yourself, Amelia. No one hit you. You were too stressed and worried." He repeated, emphasizing the words stress and ego as if they were truths. He was suppressing the truth with rationalizations, making her start to doubt her own memory. Eric put down the papers, pointed to a line of fine print. It was the hospital's medical disclaimer. "It's a simple procedure," he said. "The hospital just wants to declare the incident a non-medical incident to reduce their liability. Sign here, Amelia, let it go." She felt her hand tremble as she touched her swollen belly. The pain was no longer a kick, but a mental shock. He was lying. But why? Who was he protecting? Eric's betrayal was not just an affair. It was an attempt to erase her existence, to frame her as insane so he could be safe. She looked at the fine print. Injury due to non-medical incident. It was a trap. Signing it would be admitting that she had made it up, would be giving up her ability to sue, would be putting herself in a position where she had lost control. She shook her head, weakly but firmly. "I will not sign." Her sudden determination made Eric's face contort with anger. He turned and walked away without looking back. As soon as the hospital door closed, Eric's phone screen flashed. A text message appeared, short and sharp. "David Chen, attorney." Sent. "Failure to sign is not an option. Find a way." The hospital loudspeaker suddenly rang, interrupting Amelia's confused thoughts. A cold, decisive voice. "Major Jason Hayes, please come to the information desk. Repeat. Major Jason Hayes?" It was her brother, the only person she could trust. The call was like a ray of hope in the darkness. As soon as the loudspeaker ended, the hospital room door swung open and Jason Hayes walked in. He carried no flowers, no tears, just a cold, steely demeanor. Amelia felt a strange sense of security wash over her because Jason, a former Marine, never lied, and he always acted. "Are you sure?" He didn't ask what had happened, he asked her for the truth. When Amelia nodded, clutching the hospital blanket, Jason sprang into action. He knew immediately this wasn't an accident or random incident as Eric had fabricated it. He pulled out his phone, took a picture of himself in his Marine Recon uniform and placed it in Amelia's hand. "Keep it, that's how I hunt." Jason marched straight to the front desk, demanding all of the medical records and security footage. The head nurse politely declined, and a few minutes later, a cold email from the hospital administration arrived on Jason's phone. "Information request denied. Patient privacy policy." Jason clenched his jaw. He had read security logs far more complex than this. He knew this rejection was systematic, not random. He walked down the hallway, observing blind spots and camera locations. Using his security experience, he secretly took photos of the fire escape plan and camera locations on a maintenance screen that no one noticed. The floor plan of Chicago General was marked in red on his phone screen, indicating blind spots. Jason stood at the front desk, absent-mindedly checking his personal phone. Suddenly, a soft ring alarm sounded, audible only to him. He had secretly installed an AirTag under the seat at the reception desk, a simple but effective tracking technique to monitor the movements of a senior security guard he found suspicious. Amelia lay in her room, watching her brother act, and she felt the pressure reach its peak. She realized, "I'm not weak. I'm just isolated. He's the only one who believes in me." She knew she had an ally who couldn't be bribed. Just as Jason finished installing the AirTag, the sound of hard leather boots echoed, slow and decisive. A senior guard, the one he'd suspected, stood at the end of the hall. He didn't blink, staring straight into Amelia's room. Jason realized the extreme danger. He wasn't just a guard, he was the mastermind watching. Jason turned, his fists clenched, his military voice deep and firm. "We have an enemy, Emmy, and it's not Eric." The arrival of David Chen made things even colder and more dangerous. He was not a nurse or a security guard, he was a legal force in arms. Chen entered, his appearance elegant, his Hermes tie standing out against his expensive suit. He did not threaten, but simply offered the sincere advice of a professional. "To protect the baby, you need to prove you are stable. Sign here." Amelia looked at the document. Voluntary psychiatric evaluation consent. Voluntary psychiatric evaluation. She felt the cold of the hospital floor creep up on her. She knew this was a trap. Chen was trying to use the law to disable her, to make her insane. He explained that if she did not cooperate, he would file a lawsuit in family court. The charge would be endangerment to unborn child, a brutal and powerful legal tactic in the US to temporarily deprive her of parental rights. She realized the danger was no longer Selena or the kick in the stomach. It was the entire system being used against her. "If I sign," she thought, "they will have the power to decide who I am. If I don't sign, I will lose my child." Amelia's limits had been reached. She was being pushed to the limit, forced to choose between walking into a trap willingly or having her unborn child taken from her. While Amelia struggled in pain, Jason took action. He knew he couldn't trust anyone here, so he started tapping into his old connections in the security industry. He quickly searched for information about David Chen online on his old phone. Meanwhile, Eric was sitting in the Starbucks on the ground floor of the hospital, sending text messages. Jason's quick investigation yielded results. Visual on screen. The Google search results came back. David Chen, General Counsel, Thorn Technologies. Chen was not only the hospital lawyer, but also the general counsel of Eric's firm. At the same time, Amelia received another anonymous message, but this time it was not a threat, but a question. Who really benefits from being labeled crazy? The question echoed in Amelia's mind. Who benefits the most? She recalled a small detail about Eric's company that she had once thought was meaningless. The danger was not Eric, but the person manipulating him, the one who was truly hungry for power. That cold question, who really benefits from being labeled crazy, unlocked a door in Amelia's mind. In that moment, all the lies, all the betrayals, lined up into a single image. Ambition, not jealousy, not infidelity. She remembered the day her father-in-law died, how he had laughed when he talked about the will. "Little Eric needs your control. My grandson will be the king of invisibility." Eric was only the vice president of Thorn Technologies, a multi-million-dollar technology company in Chicago. The real control lay in the 51% of the shares his grandfather had left to his unborn grandchild. That share was her child. Amelia suddenly understood. David Chen didn't care about the child. He craved the power of that 51%. Selena's every move, Eric's every move, was just a despicable play staged to trap her in a mental hospital. From there, Chen's law firm would easily transfer the management of the assets to a trusted party. The anger that rose in her was no longer personal. It was the will to survive of a mother protecting her child. It's not jealousy, it's contract and ambition. They want to steal an empire by wiping me out. She looked at the phone where Eric had sent an old email demanding, "I need the money, Amelia, all of it." Jason had proven it. He had followed Eric and discovered that Eric had transferred a large sum of money from his Wells Fargo account to Chen's law firm. It was money for lawyers, money for silence, money for mastermind. Soon, the final blow came. Jason, using the installed AirTag, took a photo from a distance. David Chen, stepping out of a luxury Lexus, was shaking hands with the same senior security guard who had been staring at Amelia in the ward. The guard's face was beaming. The connection had been made. Mastermind was David Chen, and he had his own people in the hospital. The truth had been exposed. But to prove it, she needed someone outside the legal system that Chen controlled. You need your special agent brother. Jason knew that for people like Eric and Selena, they always felt safe in public. The Starbucks on Michigan Avenue, in the heart of Chicago, was the perfect place for a dirty secret meeting. They thought no one would notice, but Jason, a former Marine recon, knew how to make himself invisible. He disguised himself as a jogger, sweat-stained t-shirt, water bottle in hand. In seconds, he had secretly installed an old iPhone, time-lapse video mode, hidden in a large Starbucks cup, right on the table near Eric and Selena. He didn't need sound, he needed a face, a gesture to expose the gaslighting. Jason returned to his Ford F-150, parked a few blocks away, and began reviewing the blurry footage. He felt anger boil as he watched. The fast-forward footage showed Selena describing the stomach kick with terrifying coolness, her face breaking into a triumphant smile. They were reveling in Amelia's pain. That was worse than the kick. But a more important clue emerged. The footage revealed Eric was looking at some Uber ride log on his phone. He needed to move someone, perhaps Selena or Mastermind, away, somewhere safer. Jason immediately tracked down the ride log. The destination was a remote address in the Chicago suburbs, one not on tourist maps. Amelia sat next to Jason, looking at the tablet screen. She felt a cold satisfaction. "We have proof," she said quietly. "They can't gaslight this." But this brief triumph was cut short. Amelia's phone buzzed. A new text message from an unknown number appeared. "What you saw was not real. We're going to make your arguments public." It was a direct threat, indicating that Mastermind was aware of their actions. The enemy was responding, and they were attacking Amelia's honor. Jason's hands tightened on the steering wheel of the Ford F-150. Selena's hideout could be a cabin in the suburbs, but Jason needed one more clue. He needed to know who had bought the cabin. Amelia had found the courage she needed. She was no longer a passive victim. She decided to confront Eric directly, not to beg, but to demand the truth. She wanted an apology, but what she got was a different kind of cruelty, a layer of gaslighting worse than a kick in the stomach. She pointed to the Chase Bank account statement on the tablet. It was proof of the large sums Eric had transferred to David Chen's law firm, along with the mysterious Uber ride logs Jason had found. But Eric didn't deny it. His face was contorted with anger, but it was fake anger. "You're obsessed, Amelia!" Eric roared, his voice high and dramatic. "I told you, you need to stop, or I'll take you where you need to go." He tried to panic her, saying she was paranoid due to medication and latent postpartum depression. Amelia felt the cold of betrayal penetrate deeper than the physical pain. He was willing to lock her in a psychiatric facility just to save 51% of his child's shares. It was the moment she no longer recognized the person she once loved. He was willing to lock himself up just to save 51% of his child's shares. Eric walked to the nurse call bell, his hands shaking. He pulled out his iPhone, typing a message. "Wife unstable, needs sedation now." The threat of sedation, based on the strict mental health holds in the US, was an extremely powerful and real legal attack. If he called, she would lose control of her body and voice forever. But just as Eric was about to press the nurse call button, his phone rang. Not a call, but a legal email from the company. "Urgent board meeting, 4 p.m. We need the signed waiver." Eric sensed the pressure from David Chen. The company's shares were more important than manipulating her. Eric's haste and greed saved Amelia. He left in a hurry, leaving her alone in the hospital room amidst the cold sound of the monitor. He thought the company was more important than his child. He was wrong. Her mother had been preparing for this moment for a long time. After Eric left, Amelia and Jason knew they had only minutes before David Chen ordered a full-scale legal assault. The escape plan was calculated down to the second, based on Jason's battlefield experience. He knew this hospital was no longer a place of healing. It was a sophisticated prison. Jason didn't trust anyone, especially after confirming that David Chen had an inside job. Jason found a wheelchair and an oversized coat from a discarded closet, quickly disguising Amelia. She sat there weak but surprisingly calm. They moved through the cold engineering corridor, away from the main ICU area. The smell of antiseptic, the smell of dust, and the soft sound of wheels rolling across the floor were the only signs of life. They headed for the cargo exit at the back of Chicago General, a blind spot Jason had identified on the diagram. Every clatter of Jason's combat boots, every roll of wheels was a ticking time bomb. Jason used a simple jamming device, causing the hospital security screen to flash once. Amelia had to keep her breathing steady, concentrating. She was fleeing what was supposed to be a haven for mother and child. She reminded herself, "I'm a fugitive, but I have to survive. My child needs me." The risk was proof that she had completely stepped out of the victim role. Jason cancelled the Uber he was about to call. Instead, his black Lexus SUV, parked in the loading dock area, roared out of downtown Chicago. He had used his own car to avoid being tracked. As they exited the gate, Amelia's iPhone vibrated. A text from Eric. "Where are you? Answer me now, Amelia." It was the last cry of a desperate traitor. But at the same time, Jason looked in the rearview mirror. A black Mercedes, without license plates, was speeding, following them. That black Mercedes wasn't Eric. The enemy isn't just in the hospital, it's on the streets, and it wants to take them back. Jason's Lexus SUV finally pulled up in the quiet Wicker Park neighborhood. His safe house wasn't fancy, but it had a state-of-the-art security system, fingerprint locks, and ring cameras outside. It was the perfect hideout, with no trace of Amelia's old life. She felt the first wave of safety since leaving the hospital. Before Amelia could rest, Jason introduced an unexpected ally, Maria. She was Jason's former security colleague, and now a cybersecurity expert. Maria didn't have to ask much, she knew what was going on. Maria began analyzing the iPhone Eric had used to manipulate Amelia, placing it next to her MacBook Pro. "He didn't just want her to sign divorce papers," Maria explained. "Eric doesn't want you to sign divorce papers. He wants you to be declared insane so he can have custody of your child's assets." Analyzing Amelia's iCloud logs, Maria discovers that Eric has installed spyware, not only to monitor, but also to erase evidence. Amelia is disgusted. "I was wrong, I trusted them too much. Everything I said was heard." She realizes the level of betrayal has gone beyond the boundaries of marriage. It's a high-tech war. She hands the iPhone to Maria to remove the SIM card and completely disable it. Maria, quickly digging deeper into the old system logs, finds a text message between Eric and Selena. It's an old but extremely important message, where they discuss using Thorn Technologies' lawyer to solve Amelia's problem, implicitly referring to David Chen. Visual on screen. Old message, sees. iMessage. "The lawyer will handle the stock issue. Keep her quiet." "Time to respond legally," Jason says. But immediately his phone vibrates. It was Eric's number, but the voice on the other end was David Chen's. "Thorn is missing. Is she with you, Jason? If so, return her to the legal system." Jason knew full well that David Chen's call wasn't about his wife. It's a warning. They know where Jason is. The enemy wasn't just attacking Amelia. They were attacking her only ally head-on. The safe house in Wicker Park suddenly isn't safe anymore. David Chen isn't just a cunning lawyer. He's a lightning-fast mastermind. As Jason and Amelia learn of the danger from Chen's call, they realize Maria is the first target. Integrity is the most expensive thing to own, and Maria is paying the price. On her HP Elite book screen, Maria frantically tries to log into the company's system, but is denied access. The email notification chillingly reads, "Termination of access, immediate suspension." David Chen has used his legal power to file a false report, accusing Maria of theft, stripping her of all her digital weapons. In the last moment, Maria only has time to send Jason a log of the cabin purchase, proof of Eric's purchase of the hideout, before her account is permanently locked. Jason looked at Amelia, helplessness written all over the former agent's face. They're not just playing dirty, they're playing at the highest level. David Chen was using the entire system to crush each and every one of those who told the truth. Amelia looked at Maria, the pain of dragging innocent people into the war rising. I dragged an innocent person into my war. I can't let this continue. Jason opened the log to buy cabin, saw that Eric had used his Amex black card, a symbol of the American elite, to pay for a shell company. That was undeniable evidence of Eric's involvement. At the same time, Maria looked out the window, her eyes suddenly hardened. She saw 2 black Ford Taurus cars, the model often used by federal agencies, parked not far away. Maria looked at Jason, her voice tense. "You're not safe anymore. They've used the government to find you." They had nowhere to hide. David Chen was using his entire empire to hunt them down. But Maria's final evidence, the Amex black card transaction log, and the soon-to-be-activated voice memo, may be the answer. In the safe house, the danger no longer came from tailing cars, but from a white envelope, sealed by the court. David Chen was no longer hiding. He used all his legal power to complete the plan. That subpoena was not just a piece of paper, it was a death sentence for Amelia's parental rights. Visual on screen. Cook County Court summons titled Motion for Psychiatric Evaluation and Temporary Guardianship. Eric, under Chen's direction, filed fake medical records, accusing Amelia of postpartum depression leading to violent delusions. They used her own pain, her psychological vulnerability, as a postpartum mother against her. Visual on screen. Email from a fabricated nurse to Eric. Amelia needs help. She is a danger to the child. Those fake evidences were the solid basis for Chen to take away the baby and 51% of the company's shares. Amelia looked at the warrant, tears streaming down her face. They want your baby, not because of love, but because of that 51% power. She felt hopeless, trapped cruelly and systematically. David Chen had used his money and power to turn her pain into a legal tool. But in that rock-bottom moment, Amelia's resilience emerged. She stopped crying. She clenched her fists. "I won't let them do that. I have to fight, even if I have to fight alone." She remembered the first touch to her stomach after the fall. That was the only reason she had to win. Jason, with his experience as a former special agent, knew they couldn't fight the court system that Chen had corrupted. He knew they had only one chance. A surprise attack from Maria. He found a special file in Maria's file. It was an encrypted voice memo titled "In Case of Fire." The name "In Case of Fire" suggests that Maria knows what's going to happen. It's time to turn it on. It was the dead man's switch, the button that activates final justice. In the safe house, Jason and Amelia pinned all their hopes on the secret voice memo that Maria had sent. They needed to decode it, and when they did, everything about the case changed completely. David Chen's voice, professional and cold, rang out from Amelia's old iPhone, showing the audio waveform on the screen. The recording wasn't just about divorce or gaslighting Amelia, but a large-scale financial conspiracy. Chen admitted that framing Amelia was for insider trading convenience. Chen's voice was cold and decisive. "Eric is too weak. She has to get out of the game. That stock must be in my hands so that insider trading is not controlled." It wasn't just about marital ambition, it was a felony of the highest level. Jason clenched his jaw, his face no longer the former special agent's protection, but one of extreme indignation. He realized that David Chen wasn't just attacking his family, he was destroying an entire company. This is government business. They looked at the hand-drawn financial map Maria had sent, showing the illegal money flows. It wasn't the family court, but the FBI that needed to hear this recording. Jason and Amelia hurriedly printed out a series of documents, preparing the most important evidence. This was the dead man's switch that Maria had prepared. As Jason and Amelia prepared to leave, they looked out the window. A black Ford Taurus, a model often used by the FBI, was slowly patrolling in front of the safe house. They were being followed. Jason's phone rang. It was Eric calling, but Chen had used it to send a text message. "We have eyes on Jason. Move on the wife." They had nowhere to hide. David Chen was using his entire empire to hunt them down, even using the federal agency. There's no time to hide. They must go to the one place Chen's power cannot reach, FBI headquarters in Chicago. There was no choice but to bet everything on the federal agency. Jason drove the Lexus SUV through the streets of downtown Chicago straight to the FBI field office, a building that symbolized American law and security. They had to get past the Ford Taurus that was following them without getting caught. Delivering evidence to the FBI was not as easy as watching a movie. Amelia and Jason were stopped at the security gate, looked at with suspicion. She was a pregnant woman who had escaped from the hospital, and he was a former agent who was being followed. They were stopped at the reception desk, looked at with suspicion. Jason did not waste words. He presented his old Marine Recon card, but the value of honor never changed. He placed the old iPhone containing the fateful voice memo on the table for the agent on duty. He said bluntly, "This is insider trading and attempted kidnapping by legal, related to 51% of Thorn Technologies shares." No one dared to laugh or doubt anymore. They were led into the interrogation room. The agent in charge, a woman with a cold face and a wealth of experience, listened to the recording. She watched the computer screen display the waveform of the voice memo. David Chen's cold, calculating voice echoed, admitting to the stock-grabbing scheme. Everything changed in an instant. The agent in charge's cold face revealed anger. Amelia felt a wave of hope rise. For once, the system is on my side. Justice has begun. The agent in charge stood up and made a phone call. Her voice was firm and professional, no longer a question. "Contact the SEC immediately. Initiate frozen account protocol on David Chen and Thorn Technologies accounts." It was an asset freeze order. The FBI had the authority to freeze accounts, asset freeze, immediately upon discovering insider trading, a serious crime. The game was over for David Chen. The game is over for David Chen, but the coward Eric and his lover Selena are still there. The siege was closed. Shortly after, the FBI in Chicago received a warrant from the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission. David Chen was arrested in his own lawyer's office while he was frantically trying to buy a plane ticket abroad. The news exploded like a bomb. On Bloomberg and CNN, the headlines were, "Thorn Tech CEO charged with securities fraud." Eric and Selena, who were enjoying their overseas trip, received the alarming news. Everything had collapsed. Eric received a brief text message from his mother. "Everything has collapsed." The two panicked, no longer thinking about Thorn Technologies or dirty business dealings. They hurriedly boarded the earliest flight back to Chicago. At the vast O'Hare International Airport, Eric, still holding on to his last bit of arrogance, waved his Amex black card, a symbol of financial power, at the emergency service counter, trying to hire an international defense lawyer right there at the airport. Card declined. It was the death knell of his empire. The FBI asset freeze was effective immediately. Eric went from a powerful CEO to a penniless man. Amelia received the news about Chen, a cold sense of satisfaction rising. The assets of their children are not something to be trifled with. She felt a sense of relief. The FBI could arrest American citizens at international airports when there was a felony criminal charge. As Eric walked out of customs, 2 FBI agents were waiting. Close-up handcuffs were placed on Eric's hands. He was completely broken, revealing his greed and cowardice. Selena, seeing that scene, immediately turned her back and disappeared into the crowd of passengers. She did not even look back at Eric. Panic had caused her to abandon her lover. Justice had begun. Selena abandoned Eric, but justice did not forget her. The final act will be played out in court. Amelia and Jason did not choose to submit evidence quietly through lawyers. They chose to go public. The press conference was held right at Chicago City Hall, a place that symbolizes justice and community power. Amelia stood at the podium, 8 months pregnant, without makeup, but exuded a steadfastness, an iron will that no traitor could defeat. The crowd of reporters, cameras from CNN, Bloomberg, and major news channels gathered, waiting. Amelia was no longer a victim. She was a warrior standing up. She began to tell the story of betrayal. She talked about Selena's brutal stomach kick, about Eric gaslighting her, about David Chen's psychiatric warrant. She did not speak with tears. She spoke with the truth. Her voice trembled, but strong. They didn't just want money. They wanted to take away my parental rights. They wanted me to believe I was crazy so they could commit financial crimes. Jason, standing behind, was a symbol of silent protection. On the big screen, David Chen's voice memo was played back. Chen's cold, calculating voice, admitting to insider trading's conspiracy to steal company shares, echoed throughout the hall. The crowd of reporters fell silent, stunned by this undeniable evidence. Amelia had won. It's not about the money, it's about finding my voice again. She looked into the cameras, sending a powerful message. Justice must be done publicly. On Twitter X, the hashtag #justice4babyhaze quickly trended, turning her story into a community movement, forcing the authorities to act quickly. After the press conference ended, as Amelia and Jason walked away, a reporter ran after her. A new message came to Amelia's phone. I testified, I said everything. It was a message from Selena, who witnessed the fall of Eric and David Chen, and finally decided to surrender. Justice is no longer a private matter. It is time for the court to do its work. The trial of David Chen and Eric Thorne proceeded swiftly in the Cook County District Court in Chicago, under the supervision of the FBI and SEC. With the evidence beyond doubt, the verdict was deserved. David Chen, the mastermind of the legal and financial manipulation, received 15 years in federal prison for fraud. Eric Thorne, the cowardly husband and gaslighting accomplice, received 5 years in prison for conspiracy. Selena, after deciding to testify against Chen and Eric, received probation and community service. The court not only handed down the criminal sentence, but also made an important civil judgment. Amelia was declared 100% legal guardian of the baby and all 51% of Thorne Technologies' shares, completely eliminating Eric's rights. A few weeks after the trial, Amelia gave birth. The baby was completely healthy, delivered safely under Jason's care. She looked at Jason, holding his hand tightly in the delivery room. The baby, a testament to the fight and the truth, she named Justice. Amelia felt that all the pain was over. All the pain is over. I protected my child. That's the most important thing. After returning, Amelia found true peace, not something she had to beg or strive for. For the first time since the night of the attack, she looked at the Chicago Women's Center Hospital sign and didn't feel like she was about to lose another part of her soul. She smiled. Healing comes from regaining her voice and dignity. Life had taken her innocence, but in return, she had the truth and a little angel named Justice.